Hello lovelies. Today we're going to be taking a look at Mage the Ascension, the 20th anniversary edition. I have a bit of a cough, probably from running a game and doing too many shots last night as a result. So this might be a bit choppy where I cut here and there where I have a coughing fit. But anyway, you want me to review something I like, or several things that I like. I don't think I'm relentlessly negative. I think you're misinterpreting English understatement for negativity for whatever reason. But Mage is a game that I don't just like, but one that I love. One of the best games ever made, in my not so humble opinion. Just a reminder about the review scoring. 3 out of 5 is average. Alright, so 6 out of 10 or thereabouts is average. Anything higher than that is above average, and I think positively of it. Anything below that is below average, and I think negatively of it. Regardless what I have otherwise said, but when I'm doing reviews, I'm speaking about the things that, leap out, the things that are important, the things that might make or break the game. And my reviews are also done on a personal, subjective basis for the most part. There are objective elements, but there are also subjective elements, which are matters of taste. And particularly when it comes to Mage, I mean, it's impossible to disentangle my personal relationship with the game, with the company, with various other aspects from the game itself. I view this as being something that can help inform you as to why I like or dislike a game, and can help you weight my review and how much it means to you, and so on. But okay, so this is going to be, to a fairly large extent, about my personal relationship with the game and a retrospective of it, perhaps a little bit of an explainer as well, since Mage is something that people tend to have a little bit of difficulty with. So, alright then, fine. Mage is, in my not so humble opinion, one of the greatest role-playing games ever devised. Vampire was revolutionary in retrospect, even though maybe it doesn't seem like it today. Nothing else that White Wolf ever produced really lived up to that standard other than Mage. And in my personal opinion, again, not so humble, Mage exceeded Vampire in a lot of ways. I adored this game. I ran an awful lot of it. I was the chief Mage storyteller in the LARP Society for the whole of the UK for a while, and ran the country's only full crossover domain. I had the Luna card painted on the back of my leather jacket, still do. It still lasts, so pro tip kids, use acrylic, it stretches and moves with the leather, and do an undercoat first where you're going to be painting. So there you go. Yeah, I was brought up on a diet of British folklore, mystical landscapes, chalk carving, stone circles, Pat Mills's Slain, ley lines, visits to Cornwall, which is a very mystical landscape, Luke Kirby by Mackenzie and Ridgway, Indigo Prime by John Smith. Later, The Invisibles by Grant Morrison was, very influential and much loved. And that's without even beginning to touch on the magical dabblings of Alan Moore or Warren Ellis in their work on various books. Yeah, in real life, I had a friend who was into all manner of devilry and ceremonial magic, and would press the Goetia or the sacred magic of Abremelin the Mage, or the lost journals of Magus Geoffrey Carlyle, with all the zeal of an evangelical with a chick tract. I grew up surrounded by the weird kind of syncretic occult and folkloric weirdness that I think only the British, and especially the English, really experience. Personified best, perhaps, in Arthurian myths with their blend of paganism, magic, and Christianity. I'd always kinda wanted the supernatural to be true. Some dabbling with chaos magic perhaps came the closest due to its methodology of whatever works. But regardless, the supernatural simply wasn't true. There was no magic, there were no gods. These sacred sites and so on might have an emotional effect upon people, but they weren't really anything. So I suppose if this game were real, I'd be a member of the Teknoaxe, probably the New World Order, going around the world debunking and getting rid of the supernatural. There's a few things that eventually made me fall out of love with Mage, but none of them were Mage's fault. Jess Heinig, who failed to understand his own game and was a dick to fans in general and me in particular, as well as authoring the nonsensical Avatar Storm, which never made any sense and which cut the dick out from under Mage. The LARP Society made me fall out of love with the whole World of Darkness eventually, by about 2005. And Mage Revised was just... not Mage Revised, the newer version of Mage, the Mage for the New World of Darkness. That was a disappointment, full of Blavatskian and Edgar Cayce style nonsense about Atlantis, in stark contrast to the more serious, philosophical, and somewhat more plausible bent of this version of Mage. God, that was a disappointment. But what is Mage about? And this is such a thick book, I'm never going to flip through it all before I finish this review and retrospective. What is Mage about? It is about a war for reality, for consensus. Reality is as it is in the game due to the pressure of what everyone agrees that it is. Everyone in this world has a spirit bound to their soul or consciousness, an avatar, which interfaces with the spirit world, and through which magic flows. Most people's avatars are asleep, and they only dream. A subtle pressure of reality, but with, going on 8 billion people thinking broadly the same thing, that kind of consensual hallucination of agreed upon ideas creates reality. One group of magicians, though they wouldn't call themselves that, the Teknoaxe, has shaped reality pretty much since the Enlightenment. The same rules-abiding reality that we all experience, in which technology is the paradigm by which we control the world, and only in certain limited ways. So they create and enforce consensus and try to squeeze out all the other ideas about how the world might work. They're opposed by the traditions, a loose affiliation of different magical groups who hold to a disparate set of alternative ideas about how reality works. From the tantric, drug-fueled will-working of the cult of ecstasy, through the Euro-pagan rites of the Verbena, to the mid-90s internet optimism of the virtual adepts, traitors to the Teknoaxe. There's even oddities like the Sons of Ether, steampunks who split from the technocracy, so fanatical was their devotion as a group to ether theory. The technocracy decided to get rid of it. They didn't want to get rid of it, so they rebelled. And the thing is that all of these views on reality are, to one extent or another, true in the game, from a certain point of view. Each tradition, convention, or independent magical group has their own internal interpretation of reality and of their own methods of praxis. To an extent, that's individual to each and every mage, and there are mages who grow up without a surrounding tradition, small t, of magical praxis, who've just found their own way to do it. You know, someone may have had an enlightening epiphany watching The Matrix. Someone else might cast spells out of their D&D manual. Others conform to what we might otherwise expect, where a verbena might teleport from one location to another by carving travel runes and stepping through a stone circle or a fairy ring. A technocrat might fold space with a fragment of strange matter, where an order of Hermes might summon a fireball through an invocation of demonic spirits. A cult of ecstasy might breathe flame, igniting their prana through yogic training to burn their enemies with the fire of their passion, converted from metaphor to reality. Mages' avatars, those spirits that exist on everybody, are awake, not asleep. And that's what really allows them to channel magic on an active and more powerful basis than sleepers. They can reject consensus reality and substitute their own to one degree or another. But that power is also channeled through their own beliefs, which is why they might carve runes or use a fragment of strange matter or whatever else. So this awakened power of your avatar means that you can defy reality and impose your own belief on it. But this is risky. Anything out of step with reality risks paradox. That is, something that is not plausible within consensus reality, something which violates the rules that we all consciously or subconsciously follow. Paradox is a sort of spiritual affliction which makes things go badly for you. It might turn luck against you. It might spontaneously create indestructible lizards that then follow you around. It could be anything. It's some kind of twist of weirdness that is blowback for when you go too far with your magic or have a particular run of bad luck. You avoid paradox by keeping your magic low key, and you make it easier for yourself by using ritual, the various trappings and beliefs inherent to your magical methodology. You know, wands, swords, runes, scrolls, candles, magical circles, phased plasma rifles in the 40-watt range, whatever it might be. A magic that can go unseen or slip below the radar of reality is called coincidental magic. You are warping reality, but in a way that conforms just about to things that are plausible in the world around us. Things like hitting all the green lights as you drive across town, or your number coming up at roulette. Push it too far, however, and reality will notice. Having your exact number come up several times in a row in the casino stretches credulity and will probably get you in trouble with the floor manager. One person being killed by a falling piano is unusual, but you might get away with it. Two people in very quick succession being crushed by falling pianos stretches credulity. So reality notices and punishes you with paradox. Too much paradox and you risk going mad, becoming a marauder, an insane mage who believes so much so strongly in their own individual reality that they end up warping the world around them, seemingly without any real or meaningful blowback, without consequence. The best thing about Mage is its magic system, as it probably should be in any game of this sort. It effortlessly creates a sort of grand, unified field theory for the whole world of darkness, or at least it did until Demon the Fallen fucked it all up. And it allows all of these wildly different magical beliefs to work within the same philosophical and system framework. You can even use it to explain things like vampires, werewolves, all the other supernatural. The flaws that they have are ways of coping with paradox, and which justify and allow for them to use their powers to warp and twist reality, albeit in very limited ways that often conform with superstition. Despite the brilliance of the magic system, a lot of people seem to have issues with it, and it's always been kind of hard for me to understand why, other than, I suppose, things aren't particularly set in stone. They require interpretation. Maybe that's the problem for people who are used to specific spells rather than descriptions of areas of capability. But basically it runs like this. Mage characters have a statistic called arete, which is knowledge, fulfillment of potential, excellence in your practice. Kung Fu, in a way, is a similar concept. This measures your understanding of magic, of consensus reality, of connection with your avatar, your knowledge of how to manipulate magic in general. Then you have spheres. Spheres are spheres of influence. They describe broad areas of power and understanding that you might have, arenas in which you can implement and use magic, such as time, space, which is called correspondence, life, living things, forces like kinetic energy, electricity, fire, power. These are not exact, and that may be where people tend to fall over a bit. And the scope of each power at different levels in the spheres is a little bit vague and bleeds over here and there, but it works together brilliantly. And it is the interaction of these elements and the trappings of your tradition that form your magic. You're essentially trying to bullshit your storyteller, who is representing consensus reality, as to why you should be able to do one thing or another. Let's say, for example, I'm playing an orphan, someone with no particular tradition, and he's enamored of chaos magic. Orphan mages have their own independent systems of thought and magical praxis, unattached to any other group necessarily. So I have 1 dot in the sphere of life magic. I have 3 dots of arete, and I want to grant myself the ability to visualize the flow of life energy through people and things around me. Maybe I call it Vril, because I've thrown together a whole bunch of nonsense. I carefully inscribe a sigil out of the words, sense life perhaps, and end up with something that looks vaguely occulty. And then I have a crafty wank to empower it. So that fulfills the demands of my magical praxis. If I don't need to use those trappings, then it will make it easier for me, but let's assume that I need to do that. I'm not just looking for an excuse to have a wank. So I'm rolling 3 dice, my arete rating. The difficulty is based on the sphere rating of 1, and the fact that this is coincidental because no one else is going to be aware of it. So that adds 3 to the sphere to produce the difficulty. Excuse me. So I need a 4 or more on each of the d10s that I roll to succeed. I roll a 4 and 2 9s, so that's 3 successes. That's more than enough. And cross-checking with one of the tables of effect for magic, I see that with 3 successes, this means that I can have this life sense active for a whole day. So I can now go around Maybe the storyteller will give me a bonus on things like medicine rolls, or will just give me extra information about people, but I can now see the flow of life force through people, and until I have a sleep or whatever. So that's not particularly risky. People can't see what I'm doing. It's not going to be so much of a problem. Meanwhile, Abracadabra is hurling fireballs in the middle of a crowded street. She's going to have a much harder time of things. The difficulty is going to be raised. Paradox is going to be involved. Yeah, it's going to be a problem. So generally, it's better to keep your magic low key, but you can break out the big guns if you really, really want to. And that's the game, really. It's a game of everything, of a battle for the soul of humanity, of diversity against uniformity, of imagination against stark and often boring reality. Mage is a structure that can describe and encompass the whole world of darkness. Sure, it has its biases, it's anti-technocracy propaganda after all, but it is still a brilliant game in just about every facet that matters. So, speaking to this book, which I think should probably have been called the Complete Edition rather than the Anniversary Edition, well, I got it print on demand, so what you're seeing here isn't necessarily representative if you can get hold of a proper printing. But this is more robust than the other 20th century books that friends of mine have bought. The 20th edition vampire book felt like it was on Bible paper, and I was kind of afraid to flip through it. I don't get that sense here. The colour is less intense, less effective than maybe it would be in a proper printing, which is unfortunate. And I also think that the fact it's in colour has meant that there is a lot less usage of some of the brilliant black and white art from Mage's past. But there is still quite a lot of black and white art. So it's a solid 4 for me in terms of style. In terms of substance, this is basically the entire run of Mage condensed into a single reference book, with ideas and material for what might have happened in Mage since the millennium. So this is pretty much all the content you need to run Mage, almost. So it's a mid 5 in terms of substance. So that is 9 out of 10 or 4.5 out of 5. Heartily recommended. And I have no faith, particularly after Werewolf 5th edition, that the current owners of the World of Darkness copyrights and so on will do Mage right. I still have hope, but I kind of bought this to hedge my bets, so that I will always have this reference with everything I need in one volume. Good to go. But there you go. That's a game I particularly like. That is so huge we didn't even finish a flip through. Zang.
Colony Moon is a cooperative or competitive story game about founding a moon colony, making it succeed and opening up the rest of the solar system for exploration. Players take on the parts of the board and make decisions about the future of the colony, expending political capital and gaining prestige when their plans work. Available at post-mort.com, lulu.com for print, and drive-through RPG.